Good morning. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing good? I'm all right. We're working on it. We're getting there.
What's that?
One of those mornings?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's Monday.
Yeah, I know.
Is that what it is?
No, it's not a Monday
Are
thing.
you gonna be all right?
So we're gonna see. We're gonna get here. We're gonna get through 3 hours. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna talk some football.
Seem very hurt right now.
No, I feel okay.
Good.
I'm not hurt. I'm okay.
You seem very hurt right now.
Like Kendrick would say, it's gonna be all right.
It's gonna be all right. I backed a couple of losers yesterday. That was good.
Yeah, you were on a couple good ones though too.
Oh yeah.
You got Green Bay, which I don't think anybody had.
Yep. Got Green Bay and
How uncomfortable.
and the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints. Which we'll get to the Saints. Because I don't know what to do there.
Like two of the worst teams in the NFL yesterday, which is not very smart.
How
the New York El Gigantes
and the Panthers,
who are just a really, really incredibly bad football team.
You were just
a lot of people liked Carolina too. I feel like that was kind of like week 1 too against the Saints.
Yeah,
they're pretty.
They're terrible.
They're downright terrible.
They're awful.
And
they're still going to find a way to blame it on Matt Rhule somehow.
That's a poorly.
The fan base is nuts though.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I like them too, actually, but.
Well, yeah, you got an affinity there. I understand that.
But not since they've been
Big Jake Del Home guy.
Not since they've been mean to Coach Rhule though.
I know they need to figure it out. Be like, hey, you guys are like 3 coaches deep past him. Like, it may not be his fault.
I like being 3-0.
Yeah, me too.
I like being 3-0 too. Being 3-0 is fun.
Yeah, it's not fun for Jimmy though. My friend Jimmy.
Oh, what do you do? What do you do now? Come on, Jimmy.
Jimmy's not.
Is he being a downer?
Yes.
Jimmy.
I'm
gonna change your name to Debbie here in a second.
I told him to go take a lap.
Go touch some grass.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I want to go tell Jimmy. Go touch some grass. But again, he's in that genre of fan base, that age group of fan base we need.
Oh, he's younger?
Yes.
So he's never experienced joy before, is what you're telling me.
And he kind of can come across as miserable.
Yeah?
Yeah. This last one.
So what do we got today, Jimmy?
This last one was, can you explain what Bonner does well? From what I see around college football, he wouldn't start at most G5 schools. He's played a bunch of ball now, and he's not really produced anything. He's a body. Felt like old Jimmy was getting in the weeds with that.
Yeah, if you're digging to be like, hey, why are they playing Jenner and Bonner so much after a 31-point win?
Yeah.
I think maybe you're doing too much.
Yeah. Here's another one. Do you have any thoughts on why Lloyd played 4 snaps? He's hardly playing, so you evidently agree with that of, I'm just kind of a radical. That stuff matters when we face actual competition. It's a game of damn inches. You know this. It's also all about stressing the D and getting dudes who will win one-on-one. We only have a few of those guys and can't have them sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with anything Jimmy says.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I had to.
Have we seen Ja'Cory Barney? He seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Does he stress the defense?
So here's something interesting about that. Can you have the conversations about Ja'Cory Barney without having the conversation of the positions he's put in?
Elaborate.
Can you have the conversations about Ja'Cory Barney?
So like the opportunities he's given?
Yes.
Okay.
Without having the like.
I took it negatively at first, like you thought.
The swing and the little reverse, like those are cute plays, right?
Yeah.
Is that part of understanding personnel?
Yeah.
Do you get any credit for that?
I think you probably should.
Just stumbled into that, huh? Like,
I don't think so. I think they're like, hey, this guy's pretty good within space with the ball in his hands. Like,
so
we should try and get that.
Yeah.
Or like, Carter Nelson's a great example. That's a guy that's probably not ready to have a huge role in a college football offense.
But situationally, they figured it out.
They're like, oh, he's good in these spots. Let's get him the ball there.
I wonder if that has anything to do with coordinating.
And wait, yeah, maybe it could.
No, I'm being very serious here. But so there were some Jimmys.
Here's the other.
Here's another one from my friend Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy says, I know you're going to ask me, why am I conversating with Jimmy?
I was about to, honestly.
So I'm trying to bring him along.
Okay.
Because this is weird, this is very, very weird, but I do like Jimmy.
Okay.
Okay. This one, I got the head shake. I'm also extremely confident that if you polled media, fans, etc., that McGuire and Foley would pull out at the bottom of our current coaching stable. You know people people nationally. What is Satterfield's reputation? I'm just simply pointing out that they're pretty obvious, but I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had to.
Can I just?
So I had to nip that one in the bud. I wasn't mean though.
I'm about to be.
I said, why would I worry about polling media and fans about a college coach or coaches that they know very little? They actually know very little about. Like, why would I do that? I feel like I would be going out of my way to stoke my own fake fire.
Yeah, that's so. There's a lot going on here. I'm going to start with the thing that I'm the most mad about.
I think we probably ought to actually change his name from Fake Jimmy to a different name. But
I'm going to start calling him.
There are clearly actual Jimmys I don't like.
I'm going to start calling him Debbie because he's being such a downer over here.
Denny. I've referred to
he's Dennis now.
I've referred to Sipple as Denny Downer. Sipple would say, "No, I'm not Denny Downer."
We gotta be careful here.
I didn't see Sipple Saturday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I did not make myself very available.
So I'm going to start with the thing that makes me the most angry, and that's the Garrett McGuire part.
Are you going back to Jimmy?
Yeah, we're going to call him Dennis now.
Okay, yeah, Dennis. Okay, so now he's Dennis.
Yeah, he's Dennis.
He does definitely not look like a Dennis.
Well, he probably doesn't look like a
Although, unless he does resemble the younger Dennis, as in Dennis the Menace, the character in the movie. He does look like that Dennis.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting.
So the Garrett McGuire thing, I need people to chill on. Because, like, do we not remember the wide receiver group last year? Do we not remember that?
No.
And listen, I think they were better than we thought they were last year because the quarterback play was so bad.
Well, so you know what's happening? So the separation thing with wide receivers is starting to sound a lot like two gap.
Where people don't actually know what they're talking about?
No, I don't really think they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty serious.
So, like, if you think Dylan Rhule is good, which the whole fan base does, right?
Yeah.
Is there anybody who in the fan base is like, I don't know about this Dylan guy? I don't think so. I haven't found that person yet.
Yeah.
Who is he throwing the ball to?
So it's funny you say that. I didn't even share one of my responses. So I said, that's interesting, Ravi. Let me put my glasses on for this one. So I said to my friend Dennis.
Not the Menace. Well, maybe a little.
I said, Dylan completes almost 80% of his passes.
Who are those going to?
And our wide receivers don't get enough separation. If that's the case, then they must make a lot of tight window catches. But that's probably not good enough either because they don't block on the perimeter and maybe aren't very well coached. I wonder if I could have it both ways.
Have it both ways that Dylan is good, completing almost 80% of his passes.
But the wide receivers aren't.
Because they're not well coached and they can't get open.
And they don't get separation.
That's a hard sell. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's a tough case to make, DB.
So this is what his response was. This is my friend Dennis. You make some really good points. I also take into account the level of competition that we've played 3 of the easiest teams on our schedule. I remember at 5-3 last year, ending up at 5-7. We have many wants still, and in my opinion, wide receiver play and special teams play will be a problem for us when the competition ramps up. I'm not afforded that luxury because this is why we cannot have nice things.
Yeah, I think I'm just out on Jimmy D over here. I'm just out.
It's Dennis.
Yeah, well, Jimmy D.
You're out on Dennis.
I'm out.
Why?
Because he's the worst type of fan. Like he's the Bama fan that gets mad at Nick Saban when they lose a game, right? Because this doesn't change when Nebraska continues to get better, which they're going to. This is a mindset of people who just can't be happy, right? It's like, oh, they went 12-0, but it's like, yeah, but they had that one. Like, he's the Georgia fan that's mad about fallen out of number 1 right now because they had a close call against Kentucky. Guess what? They're still undefeated. They're still going to make the playoff probably. Like, what are we doing here? Nebraska's 3-0 for the first time in almost a decade. The first time they're 3-0 with a win against a Power 5 team in 17 years. Let that number sink in there are people who are seniors in high school right now who have not seen Nebraska be what they are today.
Oof.
Yeah, oof is right.
Oof.
And we got Jimmys of the world out here, and he's not alone.
Dennis.
We got Dennis out here. I'm sure there's some Jimmys, too, that feel this way because, we know a couple that are just like, well, the receivers are terrible. 17 or 15 of Dylan's 20 completions were to receivers. They couldn't get open, though? The receivers weren't open those 15 times. Dylan's just magically.
I heard this last year, too, that the receivers were open
the entire year.
Somebody started the separation talk.
And guess what? Maybe they don't want to show Jalen Lloyd to all the Big Ten teams yet. Maybe they don't want to show all their cards yet. Is that possible? Is it possible that guys have passed him?
I don't know.
In the receiver room.
Maybe there's the whole no block, no rock. There could be lots of things.
Is it possible that Isaiah Nair is actually good at football and we're just mad about it? Like, what's the problem here?
I don't know.
I don't understand. This is why I was like, we can't handle 10 wins this year, DB. And that might be a problem we have to face because I think they're good.
So Dennis isn't in the minority?
I think he's in the minority, but there's too many Dennises still.
Yeah. So somebody else sent me. It wasn't you.
This is supposed to be a happy day.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day.
I sure hope so.
Happy day.
Let's sing some spirituals up here. Exercise the demons of these nut job fans. I understand a little bit with Jimmy because he hasn't experienced anything.
So was it TK? Somebody else sent me a message with a couple of blurbs that they were sick of the negativity too.
It's ridiculous.
Was it Sam? It was somebody smart. I was gonna say it was somebody smart, so I don't know if I'm throwing TK. Am I throwing TK into that? TK's pretty bright.
I don't like. There are certain things that you could look at from Saturday and be like, hey, that's something I maybe have a little concern about. Or, hey, I'd like to see that cleaned up a little bit. Like if you come to me and you're like, yeah, they're going to have to tackle better against Big Ten opponents. I'd be like, yeah, they will. 100%. That's fair.
Yeah.
Or if you tell me, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about this, but if you tell me, hey, that QB run game, he was running in space for a really long time before our guys chased him down. Now, against Northern Iowa, those were 2-3 yard gains because he wasn't fast enough to make the corner. Against some other teams, they will be, right? You want to go there for me? Sure, 100%. Now, it's still a defense that gave up 3 points, mind you.
TK said it was me, and I am smart.
Yes, swagger.
I am so smart.
God bless.
SMRT.
Bless old TK.
If you want to give me some of those things, be like, hey, I don't know how that extrapolates against better opponents. Be like, sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Hey, need to tighten up that kick coverage.
100%.
Okay, stuff like that.
Yeah. You could make some arguments about things you'd like to see improved. I don't think the quarterback who's completing 80% of his passes and the receivers those passes are going to are probably in that conversation. Do they not realize that, like, people don't get open every play? That's not a real thing. Like, I know we are in love with the Ohio State and the Bama receivers. And guess what? They don't get open every play. You know who doesn't get open every play? Justin Jefferson in the NFL. Is he good? Is he a good receiver?
Yeah.
Like, when he doesn't get open, or you're like, oh, God, I don't know. Why isn't Justin Jefferson getting inter separation? What's going on here? No, you're like, oh, hey, good defense. Or what about the other 3 touchdowns he had today? That's pretty good. Like, what are we doing? You're 3-0. It's a ranked-on-ranked matchup this week. Be happy. I know this is a foreign concept to a lot of Nebraska fans. Experience joy, people. Just feel it in your heart. I need it. I need you to ungrinch yourselves. Let that thing grow 3 sizes. I know it's not Christmas yet, although I'm fighting every day to keep my wife from putting up decorations already.
Bro, so there's a house around the corner from me that has some spectacular Halloween decorations up.
Getting after it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
My wife is a big seasonal decorations person.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually it's inside the house. We don't do a lot outside the house.
Yeah.
But inside the house, she gets, she likes spooky season and all that kind of stuff.
Does she know that you're easily frightened?
Yeah, I have veto power on stuff where I'm like, nope, too creepy. Don't like it.
Okay. Shane, do we like
we
like Angry Ravi? Angry Ravi's funny, Ravi.
I don't.
Nah.
I don't understand. I need people.
So you're hearing things like this too?
Yeah, 100%.
I don't.
This is not isolated.
I don't want to be chastising folks that are unnecessary when it's unnecessary.
No, if you're happy,
Like Bobby McFerrin.
Yeah, don't worry, be happy. Listen.
Can you be happy and not think that all is well?
100%. That's where I am.
Okay.
I'm thrilled about how the season has gone. I'm still like the QB run thing was me. I brought that up.
I was having flashbacks because that's how we were getting carved up by Millard West. Exact same scheme. Listen, I would like to think I'm fairly okay.
Yeah.
In terms of aptitude, I know Coach Queen is bright.
Yeah.
I shook hands on Friday night and I said to Coach Long, I said, man,
I didn't like that much.
It was a great scheme.
Yeah.
It's great
and
scheme.
It's tough to defend.
Did you see my man go 76 and some change against LSU on QB sweep keep with motion? And he just made the safety miss and he hit his head on the.
That's really hard to defend.
It is because you have to be so gap sound when it's not on paper a ton.
Especially if there's an RPO concept to it.
Yeah.
Right? That's really, really difficult because
hard.
You're making choices and you're making hard choices with bad information.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're trying to make people do with an offense.
It's like, and you do now. We'll see if we can get better. But I mean, for instance, we're playing a team this week with really good QB run game.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a marker and dry erase board too.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this could easily be part of his offense, especially the way that they already play. We have to get better.
I mean, Coach Farley at UNI has been doing this for 24 years at the same spot. Which means he's won a decent amount. Otherwise, he would not be at the same spot.
Do you know what they finished statistically with their rushing yards?
I've got it right here.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Readily at your little grimy fingertips.
139.
Do you know how many carries?
39. That's 3.6 yards per. Did you take that most days?
Yeah, it would.
As a defense, you'd be like, yeah, if you are only going 3.6 per, I'll take that.
It's about 200 under their average too.
You want to know the thing that surprised me the most about that, though?
What?
What was their long run of the day?
Ooh. Was it by a quarterback?
It was by a quarterback.
I will say the longest run of the day was plus or minus 2 yards.
Sure.
11 yards.
It was exactly 11 yards. If you had told me that before I had looked at the numbers, I would have thought they broke like an 18-20 yarder.
Yeah.
Because of the way it seemed for how long they were running in space sometimes.
So, and the other funny thing is, and I wasn't mad at Lincoln Lance, but I did have a question and some of it is my own fault because I'm very inviting because contrary to popular belief, I like people. If I talk to you,
oh yeah,
I probably
you have some level of affinity for that person.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be like
you just don't talk to people,
right?
Yeah, 100%.
So after Bullock's second missed tackle, but keep in mind this is during the broadcast, which is fine. I can more than multitask. I'm doing okay. At one point, I had to say, "Why do you keep telling me this?" This is what I said. And I thought he was going to say something snarky.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I don't know if he was being honest, but I'm going to take him at his word because he tells me the truth. He said, I'm just surprised to see it. Because Bullock. So now I was like, oh, okay. That's fair. Right? And then I had to remember what we talked about in pregame. There's 490 pounds of running back.
Big guys.
That
big running backs
that Nebraska was seeing.
100%.
Those guys are pretty good too.
Yeah.
And you know what I would want? I don't care what run. Look at the thousands of running backs you'll see in the season in the NFL. Some we have never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really like they're like not household or name brand guys. Those guys are hard to tackle.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because you know what running backs are taught? Like one-on-one.
What's that?
Be hard to tackle.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I cannot.
Pretty essential to the job.
So I could not be enamored with the leaky yardage because I talked about it during the broadcast with Sharpie. I was like, it's kind of some hidden yardage, you know, throwing guys forward and and kind of lunging, trying to get takeaways. But I can see what Nebraska's trying to do, right? You want to secure, then strip, then the next guy strips, and
but when you're doing with a 250-pound running back,
yeah, like your vice needs to be a little tight. Your vice drill needs to be a little bit tighter. I'm like, these guys are pretty good too. Like they just are.
And I don't care if they're FCS running backs or whatever. 250-pound running backs are hard to tackle.
You know what? I will never be disrespect. Yeah, like
250-pound running backs are hard to tackle.
Again, the difference in level of play is the number of good players from FCS to FBS.
Not so much the actual good players.
Right.
Well, the other thing is, especially, and we've
but you hear my heart. I'm not making the case for.
No, Nebraska won 34-3. They beat their heads in.
But you know what was funny? Because tell me what you think about this. So Sharpie looked at me about halfway through the second quarter, and he goes, "I think this was off air." He goes, "These guys are better than UTEP, aren't they?"
Yeah,
that's what I think.
I think so, 100%.
Okay.
The other thing is, let's not act like we haven't been talking for 3 years about how the COVID thing was going to have better talent trickle down to the FCS level. We've been talking about that for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So why are we surprised that there's good players on an FCS team, a ranked FCS team?
I just was talking to you about Dennis. I did not want you to be upset.
I'm fine. Dennis doesn't seem okay.
TK must have a lot of friends that feel the same way because it was TK that brought that up.
I mean, it's mostly I'm mostly seeing it on Twitter, so I need. Maybe I need to spend less time on the internet. That's a me problem.
Yeah.
Steve, hold on the line. We'll get you when we're coming back.
T-Mac's got a good
on
point
Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. What a great point there by Coach Rhule about bringing people along.
I always wait to see what snark are we going to get next here?
Not snark.
Young Ravi.
I think it was a terrific point by Coach Rhule.
Okay.
This Carter Nelson fella, and they've brought him along slowly. I
wish people
that.
could see your delivery.
They've given him tasks to master. I appreciate that. What else did he say about young Carter? Oh, he wasn't here in the spring. Interesting. So hasn't had a lot of time to get things down. Yet somehow
they're playing to his strengths.
Well, and okay, we forgot about one thing. He's played 3 games of actual football in his life. No disrespect to 8-man, but it is different. Okay, you're going from Arena League to the NFL. It's a little different.
So Coach McGuire should or shouldn't get credit for that?
Well, I would think that if you find a way to get a guy who's never played real football before, who wasn't here in the spring, all of a sudden he's become a productive part of the offense, even in a limited role. I think whoever his position coach is should get some credit. Now, who would that be?
Right, yeah.
If you have 7 different actual receivers, not including tight ends, catch balls.
Is that good?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I know. I mean, we like Carter. We like Carter Nelson, right? Who's his position coach?
I'm asking the question.
It's Garrett McGuire. Okay, we like Ja'Cory Barney, right? Who's his position coach? That'd also be Garrett McGuire. Shoot. But do we like Isaiah Nair? I mean, he's scoring some touchdowns. Do we like him? Oh, well, his position coach is Garrett McGuire too.
Really everybody?
Maybe. People don't know what they're talking about.
You know what else is kind of interesting? You know who else was kind of on?
But we give it a pass. Hold on. I'm almost done. Probably not, but maybe.
Just to freaking grab some hot fries.
But we give it a pass like we haven't experienced the last 10 years of Nebraska football because, Carter Nelson was a high recruit, so he's doing that all on his own. Oh, Ja'Cory Barney was highly recruited. He was a 4-star, so he's doing all that on his own. How many 4-star wide receivers haven't done jack diddly for Nebraska over the course of the last decade. I could come up with a list, but we only have a 3-hour show. How many of them never saw the field and took their tails back to Miami or Florida, wherever they're from, California?
Kentucky.
A lot. A lot of them. A lot.
They don't care about how much you know until they know how much
But
you
we
care.
got these 2 true freshmen who all of a sudden, they're only succeeding because they were highly recruited. They were good talents.
You know what really bugs me about this whole thing with
What's that?
McGuire? I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, we came up with these incredible stats on players that had been through the program that were highly touted without getting any production. And we said to ourselves, what is going on at Nebraska where we just cannot develop wide receivers?
Yeah.
I swear to goodness.
And a lot of them were 4 stars.
This was a thing.
And a lot of them were 4 stars.
So we're getting it now. And even that's not good enough. That's the reason. That's the thing that bugs me.
Yeah.
Because we sound like, just to land the plane full circle, who was the first coach that Coach Rhule publicly had to defend on the recruiting trail?
Garrett McGuire, because he was super young.
Garrett McGuire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sound like petulant little children, is what we sound like.
Garrett McGuire.
This is why I decided not to become a teacher, because this is how children act. And I thought in the adult world I might have better chances. I may have overestimated.
I almost said this out loud. I was like, I wonder, because a lot of times, like, it doesn't even matter what the sport is, right? He's done it in volleyball. He's done it in football, college basketball, Nebraska and Creighton. I always think to myself, what would Joel say? What would the mayor say? Because he's a little sarcastic. He's very straightforward, right? Strong takes, athletic department, admin, board of regions. So I almost said, you know what? What would Joel say? WWJS, right? My man on X says, no Butler, no Barron, right? Playing a 3rd and 4th string guys next to Bullock, and the defense did look as crisp and leak some yardage. This is surprising. That almost sounds like something Daniel would say, but they have very similar snark meters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Similar.
High condescending meters. It's just like we can critique and we can have conversations, but we just can't be making stuff up.
No.
Like,
no.
we just can't make things up. Like, the whole play calling thing last week was 100% made up.
Yeah, that was mythical.
It was made up.
Yeah.
And now we're on this separation thing.
It's because we gotta pick something.
How are so many guys catching balls?
It's a really good question.
I mean, clearly our OC isn't the answer.
No, because the OC's terrible. We know this.
Clearly the wide receivers aren't the answer.
No, because they're
and
terrible.
I know
We
I sound
that.
like a Richard head, but like
that's what people sound like. They're saying
at some point you just have to ask yourself these questions,
because not everything can be true at the same time.
Like, what am I really saying when I complain? Are we
unhappy with the passing game?
It's like,
are we unhappy with the passing game? Would you say in general people are unhappy with the passing game?
I would not say that.
Right. So there's a few different parts of the passing game, right? You got the quarterback. We like the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
We got the offensive line where people are a little iffy on, but you're missing a starter last week, and a couple days ago, it seemed like it went okay, right? And then we got the wide receivers or the pass catchers in general, right? So quarterback's good. We like the quarterback, but we're saying the other 2 things are bad and the passing game's good. Does that make a lot of sense to you?
Not on the hoof.
No, it doesn't. You know why? Because we've seen what bad offensive line play can do to good quarterbacks. Makes them pretty bad. Makes them pretty average in a hurry. We've seen what bad wide receiver play can do to good quarterbacks. Makes them look pretty average in a hurry. Would you describe Dylan Raiola's start to his career as average?
No.
No, it's a little better than that, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He's completing a lot of passes for a good amount of yards.
And
good yards per attempt.
And he's the only one we're afraid to say anything remotely negative about.
Yeah, he underthrew the ball to Jalen Lloyd. Sorry. That's why it was a pick.
A little too much air.
Yeah.
Like we're on a couple.
And then you know what I heard?
We're afraid to say.
Do you know what I heard?
Oh, this ought to be good.
Jalen Lloyd's got to go up and high point that. I was like, Jalen Lloyd's like this big. He's looking me in the chin. Fast as all get out. Like, you don't draw that play up for Jalen Lloyd to go high point a ball. You draw that play up for him to go run. Because what's Jalen Lloyd good at? Running. Okay? You draw that up for Isaiah Nair to go high point. You draw that up for Jamal Banks to go high point. Guess who that play wasn't to? Banks or Nair. That ball was underthrown. That's on. And listen, I still thought it was simultaneous possession, whatever. But, like, that pick's on Rhule. It was underthrown.
You know what's weird? I actually thought that was a pick.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did he have more of it in your mind?
So, like, the catch, like, when they went up, I thought it was 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Like, coming down, he, like, made...
Thought he wrestled it away.
He used his inside... It was
because he, like, rolled.
So, the momentum. So, he used his inside arm, but the momentum...
Rolled him away.
Gave him the ball. So, I was like...
That's fair. I mean, Lloyd's arm was still in there, but I could see how you make that argument.
But normally you don't see that go against the offense.
No, yeah, if there's that much of the offensive player in
normally
there.
You don't. But I thought that was a fantastic play by the team.
It was a great play, but guess what? Guess why he was able to make that play? The ball was underthrown. It was too far to the inside. He didn't lead Jalen Lloyd. He probably had flashbacks from last week where he overshot him by a little bit. And I was like, hey, let's not do that again. And guess what? It turned into a pick. That's okay to say.
My man, T-Mac.
Doesn't make Dylan Rhule any worse.
Who is now a fan of the new #1 team in the country, Texas, says,
gross.
Too many Jimmies, except now it's Dennis. Too many Dennises think it's fantasy football and perceived stars will always play. We're not in practice. We don't know how well or bad folks are practicing. They could be working through some injuries and don't want to worsen it against a poor opponent. Long story, less long, it's we don't really know anything.
Your names Darian Chase and Damarian Houston mean anything to you?
Yeah. Those guys.
4-star wide receivers didn't do a damn thing. I just looked at one. That's one class. Got to be the 4 stars, though, not the wide receivers, coach. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Big Red.
AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we're brought to you by our friends at Union Omaha. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com to get your tickets for Saturday, September 21st. That's this upcoming Saturday. And guess what? Nebraska's playing on Friday, so you can get out to Warner Park on Saturday and see Union Omaha. Tickets available at unionomaha.com. All right, before I get distracted by people making me mad again, let's get to my guy. Actually, Steve. Steve, what's going on, bud? Steve, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good morning. What's up?
Hey, I wasn't born into the cult of Husker fandom. I'm a transplant.
Okay.
And I know that the average Husker fan thinks that it's our God-given right to control the clock. But Northern Iowa came into this game with a plan to limit possessions, and I don't think Nebraska cared. Northern Iowa was running that play clock down to 1 or 2 seconds for every snap. And as you said during the broadcast, Damon, Nebraska was running tempo. They didn't care.
Northern Iowa had the ball 38 minutes.
Yeah, and Nebraska was scoring in 3 minutes each time they got it.
Yeah.
I think that when they go to Columbus, they're going to care, and I bet they have a game plan very similar to what Northern Iowa had, because they're going to want to limit Ohio State's time out on the field. Mm-hmm. But they knew that they were going to be able to score pretty much whenever they wanted to when they went in there, and it really didn't matter.
Yeah. I appreciate the call, Steve. The Tanner's funny. He says, no, this isn't me talking. This is just him on X. He said, loud people like to be ITCH. I, for one, am excited for the rest of the season. We look calm and confident. I knew this would be a game that would feel closer than most people wanted it to be.
It didn't feel close. Listen, it didn't feel close. It didn't.
Okay.
It was 34-3. It was 21-3 immediately. It didn't feel close.
So
This wasn't a close game.
So did you want Nebraska to feel like a sense of urgency to stay on the gas when it was 21-3 because they're learning how to win, and that would have been the most myopic thing ever?
No, I wanted them to score 50 because I want them to score 50. That's it. That's all. But when I knew as soon as Northern Iowa had their first drive, I knew that wasn't going to happen because they were really good at controlling the clock and limiting possessions. When you have one drive that takes 10 minutes and basically the first quarter's over after that.
Yeah, 10:22 to be exact.
Yeah, like Nebraska had one full drive in the first quarter, and they scored on it. And also, let's not pretend like that 10-minute drive doesn't put an enormous amount of pressure on the offense to keep scoring. Because guess what happens if you have to punt on your second drive after a 10-minute drive? A, your defense is exhausted. And B, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, what if they take another 10-minute drive? This game's at halftime, and we're up maybe 7-3, 7-6. Are they down 10-7? Nebraska's been in those games before when they weren't this good.
I believe. Now, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I know you will. I think Northern Iowa started out converting 4 of their first 6 third downs.
I believe that's correct.
I believe they were 4 of 6 on third down at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what they finished?
Not off the top of my head. 5 of 12?
No, 6 of 16. That means they went 20% the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's 2 for 10. Not great.
Right. So 6 of 16. So that's
38%.
375. That's 37.5% third down stop rate after starting 4 of 6. Now, 37%, in my opinion, is a little high. You'd like that down around 33, 32.
Just under 35.
So
would be great.
Like, they clearly got better.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, 100%. The tackling got better. The assignments got better.
Yeah, that's just
getting off the field on third down got better.
I was having first I was having Millard West vibes.
A few flashbacks.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, I gave Coach Long and that staff their props. Like that was really good. I was having North Platte vibes from a couple years ago when we went up there and got spanked. Because if you don't get teams like that off schedule, it's miserable.
It gets away from you.
Because I felt like they were really physical up front and their backs fall forward. So you could look up and think you hit a fit nicely.
Yeah.
And it's 2nd and 6.
Yeah, it's a 4-yard gain just because they fell forward.
And you're like,
wait, I did what I was supposed to there. What happened?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, if you're doing like Nebraska tends to do, which is stop them, try and strip, and then they fall forward, all of a sudden it's a 6-yard gain, right? Because you spent the time trying to knock the ball out, which I don't have a problem with, but I thought they made that adjustment too, where they're like, hey, just get him to the ground.
I just think it's kind of like I heard Coach Samanji talk to us about, like, as a staff, like the best thing that's happening to us is like we can't rest.
Yeah.
Right. There is no.
You got to stay on a little bit.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we got guys that haven't played a ton.
I had one complaint on Saturday.
So I think the good thing about this team is when you have a coach that's pretty high strung and super competitive like that, it can grate on you if you deep down internally feel like you're actually better than he's saying. Do you know what I mean? It's like, man, this guy's never happy.
Here's the nice thing. I don't think anybody thinks Nebraska. That's what Coach Rhule thinks.
So what? Hey, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So in this particular case, no one actually thinks that Nebraska's actually as good as he does. Yeah. Except those guys, and he's still maniacal.
And he still might think they're a little better than they think they are.
That has the potential to be pretty good.
And that brings up
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that brings up an interesting question that I've been thinking about for about a week now. How good do you think Rhule believes this team can be? I know where I'm asking you to climb inside his brain a little bit, which is like, we're speculating here, but I agree. I think Coach Rhule thinks this team's better than any of us do, and maybe a little bit better than the guys themselves understand.
I don't know. That's a fantastic question.
Because the way he talks about this team doesn't sound like, oh, they're good for year 2 or they're good compared to last year. The way he talks about this team, he just thinks they're good.
Yeah, for a guy that I talked to for a fair amount of time after on the drive home from North and Central,
Mhm.
he was not very inviting on Saturday. So I kept it moving.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know he was very intense.
Mhm.
And you can just, I mean, clearly those guys have a pregame, so you don't assume that. I mean, some people just, hey man, I'm working.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But
maybe he had a sense of like, hey, I'm gonna have to provide a little.
no,
bit of
so
the
he's dealing with
intensity.
the Jamari thing.
Mhm.
He's dealing with the Mazuka thing.
Mhm.
He's got to figure out his, the running back thing, because that's the other thing that I didn't even get to, and I know I was pretty animate about this 2 weeks ago when I said get off Coach Barthel. How many other guys are dusting Emmett Johnson off to play the way that he did on Saturday night if you don't have control of that running back room?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, did Ramir play before before halftime?
If he did, it wasn't much.
Like you have to be like to temper them. Like I've been in those situations. You better be pretty upfront with prima donnas like myself.
Yeah. You got to be. You have to have an intense level of trust for that to work in that room,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be super transparent. Because you know what people with egos get mad at?
Is there any one of those guys that isn't better than the last time you saw him?
No.
Okay.
All of them are better. Every single one of them.
Yeah. Emmett looks pretty good for a guy that didn't play a ton the first couple of weeks, right?
And he just breaks one off.
Yeah.
Like, and guess who looks good every time he touches the ball? Dante Dowdell.
Yeah.
Guess who couldn't play dead in spring? Dante Dowdell. Steal one of your lines. Like, who did we think was just a receiving back? Ramir Johnson. Guess who looks pretty good? Ramir Johnson.
And I get it. We sometimes we stay right here, but was there how many John Bullock fans were there pre 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, not a lot.
So he kind of sets the tone, his own standard.
Mhm.
He's becoming his own benchmark.
Yeah, and that benchmark was Colorado last week,
right?
Where we saw him flying around and
so
stuff.
So he may not have hit his own benchmark, and we're like,
what's wrong with this guy?
I don't know.
It's like, oh, maybe there's some other things going on.
Maybe
having Jamari Butler on the field matters.
Sometimes I just think we need perspective. And here's the other thing too, and we won't have time to get it. We can maybe get into it with Sam, but the way that he's managing this roster, playing the long game, is pretty good. Like he's intentionally not playing some good players
because he's fresh later.
Yeah. I mean, Riley, you talk about guys that would be playing for a lot of other. I mean, Riley Van Poppel would be playing for a lot of other teams.
A lot.
But using Keona Davis the way that he is now sets up Keona Davis to be next year's Riley Van Poppel.
And to be better.
As an example.
Even later down the line.
Right?
Just some names. Marcus Fleming, Xavier Betts, Alante Brown, Omar Manning. Those are 4 four-star receivers in the same class. What any of them do at Nebraska? Unrelated to anything. Sam's coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And if you don't remember, 11 years ago, Jack Hoffman scored a touchdown in the Nebraska spring game, rallying Husker Nation and putting pediatric brain cancer on the map. Since then, Team Jack Foundation has raised over $13 million for research, and they need your help again. Thursday, September 26th is the 12th annual Team Jack Foundation Radiothon presented by the Home Agency. Make sure you tune in and donate. Visit teamjackfoundation.org for everything you need to know. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big
We still working on Sam, Shano?
Shane, where's Sammy McKewon?
I've got the bat signal out.
Yeah, he might still be mad about the old Bears last night.
I mean, Caleb Williams looks real bad.
Okay, relax.
He
Alice.
does. It's only a couple games. It doesn't look great. That's all I'm saying.
Relax.
I'm not saying it's done, but it doesn't look great.
I love those uniforms, and I hate the Bears, but I love those
You
uniforms.
love the Bears.
I hate
Big Bears guy.
I hate the Bears.
Love Walter Payton.
No, that's not true. That is 100% not true. I have people that want to fight me over my Walter Payton.
Yeah,
takes.
Matt Verzal wants to fight you over here.
Sure does.
I'm aware.
Guess one take that he can't fight me over.
What's that?
My Kyler Murray take. How you like them apples? I try to tell you all off season. Here comes Kyler.
What are you pointing at me for?
Flipping Murray.
What are you pointing at me for?
I don't know. Because you talked me in the back in the Giants.
No, I didn't. I think we got Sam now here on the Hurrdat Hotline. Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, what's going on?
Not much. You're a fan of tiny Kyler Murray?
He loves it. He loves tiny quarterback. That's why his team signed Russell Wilson. He's like, we need the closest thing to Kyler we can get. Let's get miniature Russell Wilson.
Whoa. Okay. So between the three of us,
he started doing lunges up and down in the restaurant.
First of all, you guys aren't being very kind. Yes, I know.
I like Kyler Murray. I like him too. He's just small.
I'm cheering for a quarterback whose team's offense, I don't know, I think he threw for $117 yesterday in a win. Ravi's over here bad-mouthing your quarterback and Caleb Williams, and his team got beat by a quarterback that wasn't good enough to play in his city in San Francisco. So I think my friend Ravi should just zip it.
No, I mean, we got Sam Darnold ready for Minnesota. You're welcome, Vikings fans. You're welcome.
Hey, let me ask you something real quick, Sam, before we get too far off of this Nebraska train. Who's closer to being more like who they have been, Sam Darnold or Trevor Lawrence?
Darnold. Yeah. I've always been a Sam Darnold fan.
Me too.
College, so yeah. I think he went to the wrong franchise.
Do you know why I'm really hoping he does well? Do you know I'm deep down? Because I'm petty, and I want to fight Severe over Sam Darnold because we argued about him since he's been in the league.
Also because
he didn't like him coming out of college, and I did, and basically I want to be right for once.
And DB is a huge USC homer.
Zip it. Zip. Sam, you want to?
Yeah, yes.
You want to co-host the show?
I like it. Yeah. I like USC's helmets. They're great. They're like they're a top 10 helmet in college football.
I
top 10.
Detected another sarcasm over here. Sam, I have a question because you're pretty good at this, and you'll slap my hand if you're mad at me. Do you feel like I'm a little too preachy, chastising people for not wanting nice things with Nebraska football?
No, I don't know.
Because I feel
about this today.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested because I feel like I'm kind of mad, but I kind of laugh it off. Like we have very short memories. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden I think they want us to be some people want us to be something that we haven't been for 20 years. So just stay right here. Like just stay right here. Don't make things up. Stay right here.
So right. People have very short memories and they also have long ones. And so what they remember about Nebraska football are the best things that were true of Nebraska football in the years when Nebraska was great. Now I'll say this, if you're going to bring back all the national title teams all the time, which they do, then you're asking people to immediately evoke nostalgia. If when you fire an AD, you go into a press conference and the president and the chancellor of the university say, well, I don't know why we can't go back to the 90s, which they did in 2017. You're basically asking the fans to feel that way. So I think some of it is based on there's a lot of people that are still trying to use those players from that era to say, hey, we can still be this. And you were one of those players. And I don't know, maybe sometimes you feel like you're, used in that way as opposed to appreciated, like it's more
hey, come to the game tonight. You get to see when we were good or whatever it is. But Nebraska is good now. They're good. And I wrote about it today. Like, Nebraska fans have become accustomed to, if it's a 31-point win, then they play great. Or it's not a 31-point win and they barely won. And so what you had on Saturday night was a 31-point win that wasn't perfect by any means. It just wasn't. But it was still a 31-point win over a team that's probably going to end up about 6-5 or 7-4 in the Missouri Valley because it's a hard league. And I think you kind of saw it on Isaac Gifford's face. Like, he was torn. He was torn between not being happy because the standards are higher and acknowledging the fact that, like, we only gave up 3 points. And Nebraska has not only given up 3 points very often in the last 10 years. And so you can't be too unhappy, right? And so I think there's that tension there that comes when a team is better than it's been in many recent years.
Sam, I mean, that's one of those, like, two things can be true at the same time, right? Like, hey, Nebraska's playing way better football than they have in years, and there's still some things that we know they can do better because we've either seen glimpses of it or flashes of it. Like, I guess it seems like that's really hard for people to wrap their minds around. It's either, hey, they're playing great football and nothing can go wrong, or they didn't look their best, so the sky's falling. Like, is that how it's sort of seemed to you? Because that seems like the two camps people are in.
A little bit, I think so, and I think there's a little bit of that. It's just natural. There were things about the way Northern Iowa was playing where, even though they were holding on to the ball for a very long time, they weren't breaking any big plays, and so it's hard to score points when you're content with 5-yard curl routes, and you're really just trying to hope that you get a bust in Nebraska's defense so that you can break a play that really should go for 5 yards but ends up going for 50 because somebody didn't do their job. Nebraska did have a few plays like that on Saturday night, but they didn't go for 50 yards. So, I think people are a little torn too. But now you get to play Illinois. Illinois is ranked. I don't know if they're one of the 25 best teams in the country.
I was going to say, I can't wait for the referendum, depending on how this game turns out, right? It's just kind of what we do.
I guess I would say I was wrong about Illinois because I didn't think they were going to be very good. And they're not bad. Like, their defense is pretty good. And they've got a good receiver, really good receiver, 2 good receivers. And their quarterback's fine. But I thought Indiana would be pretty good, and they are good. They're, in my opinion, for example, I don't have the ballot anymore, but I would have Indiana in the top 25. I would not have Illinois. So Indiana's pretty good, and Nebraska's got to go on the road to play them. And so, you're going to get tested now. It's going to be real, and it's going to be a real thing. I actually think Nebraska beat a pretty good Colorado team. I thought that team was better than its record last year because of the league they played in, and I think they're probably not bad this year. And I think that the Colorado team that I watched play Nebraska hits and plays very, very hard. They may not, their quarterback is he's very talented and a little bit mercurial, but they play very hard. And so I think they're actually going to be a pretty good team this year. We'll see what happens. But, so I think Nebraska's already got a help. And Illinois, I guess, will be another good one. I mean, again, I think Colorado's probably a better team than Illinois, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Illinois is going to come in here and, take a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. That's possible if you don't play your football right.
Yeah, I was on record after Big Ten Media Days and the 2 days out at Indian Creek when we were doing the PBC with Indiana about the first potential loss. So I'm well aware of Indiana's prowess, but I will say this. I think a lot of how we view the production or productivity or progress of Nebraska has to do with confirming our own thoughts ahead of time, right? So we thought blank about Colorado, so this is how we feel about the win. We thought blank about UNI, so this is how we feel about the win. And I think we've got to get to the point where we actually watch what's happening and formulate opinions that way based on Nebraska. Because if they're going to be their own benchmark, then that's what you have to pit it against, right? Because that's what coaches do, right? If you want to get better, it can't be opponent specific. It has to be about what you're capable of doing. But until we all talk about it from that vantage point, we're going to have these conversations every week about this particular portion of the fan base feeling like this and media feeling like Nebraska's got to be compared to Nebraska getting better. And I think it's not any more complicated than that.
Sure. No, I mean, they play teams, and fans are naturally going to want to win. I do think that Matt Rhule's vision is a long-haul vision. So simultaneously to wanting to win right now, and I feel like they have a team that can win quite a few games this year, not 11, but they can win quite a few. You're also trying to build for the future. So one of the things I would say is that if Nebraska really wanted to win on Saturday night, I don't know, 48-3, they probably could have. There's stuff, there's plays they can call, there's things they can do.
I mean, look at the participation chart.
Yeah. Right. And so, like, if you're really into, winning this game by 45 points is super important. Obviously, when Indiana played Western Illinois, they felt it was really important to win 77-3, and they did. And maybe that's what Indiana needs. I mean, then they went and beat UCLA 42-13, and again, I would say they played better than a lot of the teams that are ranked ahead of them so far. So, I mean, everybody's kind of going to do what they got to do. I think where Matt Rhule's at right now is he knows that there's a lot of veterans on this team, and there's like 10 to 12 guys they're not coming back. And so you've got to find a way to develop the players behind them, especially in non-conference play, because those guys are going to have to play a ton of football next year. And it's one of these deals where you've got to get some guys ready to go, and you don't have to lean on Ty Robinson an entire game. There's going to be a game this year where they probably do, but it's not going to be against Northern Iowa. And so Matt Rhule just kind of runs the program a little bit differently than maybe some other coaches would. He's going to put a lot of energy and time into development, which he has done. I think he wants to retain a lot of his players. As we all know, they can't retain all of their players because the roster numbers are going down and some of these guys are going to go, especially in the defensive backfield where some of them aren't playing. But, it's one of these deals where he wants to retain and develop players. And that's how he gets it over time. And so, he's got a short-term goal, but also a long-term vision too.
I think it's kind of incredible, right? I mean, Nebraska played without two starters in Butler and Mazuka. They had a back that started two games that didn't play until the second half. He has the second unit in at the start of the fourth quarter. He's already substituting on defense halfway through the third quarter, and we don't talk about any of that. It's like, oh, ho-hum. And I say all that to say, one of his better strengths is what you're talking about. His roster management and moving pieces, playing the long game while still winning, has been pretty impressive. We didn't even when's the last time two starters could not play and nobody really seemed to care at the end of the day? Actually, three if you count Ramir and Bayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. So Ramir didn't play in the first half. Again, based on what I've seen on the field, I think Emmett Johnson has earned the opportunity to be.
And he didn't even barely play last week. Like, that guy's pretty good.
No, I know. He's very good. I think it's interesting that he's referred to as the closer, which that's fine with me. He has had a lot of very good fourth quarter runs. I think he just needs to play more. Ramir has always been one of the toughest and hardest working guys on the team. He runs into defenders, and Emmett doesn't run into his men. And that's my perspective. Like, you want Ramir to catch the football, and he's a straight line guy, and if he can get blocks, then he can go. Emmett just makes guys miss, and I just put a high premium on the ability to make people miss. And I think Emmett does that really well. And then Dowdell can really run over people. hits a hole so hard that it's, there's just people aren't ready to tackle him. But yeah, like I think Nebraska's doing. They have some good young defensive. Princewill didn't play perfectly on Saturday night, but
if he'd have got another penalty, boy, he may have been in some trouble.
Right. He didn't play perfect, but he comes off the edge with a lot of fire, and certainly has the ability and is coming along, and they're playing him a lot. And Kai Wallen does good things when he's out there.
He's a good pass rusher.
Yeah. And they've got some young interior linemen. They're able to kind of rotate in, and we'll see where that goes. Again, you want to try to retain every single defensive lineman you can. It's I don't know that it's the most important position, but it's the position where in November you're going to be glad that you had them all, because it's a position that really wears on a Big Ten defense. And so they've done a nice job of rotating through players and getting guys snaps. And of course, not all of them are going to be stars because you can't play them all at once. But I do think that, again, they're developing a culture on defense of playing a lot of guys. You've got to be ready because they're going to put you on the field. And then a culture of effort. I mean, John Bullock plays so hard, and he did miss a couple tackles. Isaac Gifford plays so hard. Malcolm Hartzog plays hard. He also missed some tackles. But these are players that are constantly running. And I appreciate that. Like the level of effort that Nebraska puts out on defense is.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, is there anything that you've seen out of the first three games that has your attention of something that might come back to bite Nebraska throughout conference season? Is there any area of concern for you?
Sure. Special teams, you and I've said that many times, that there's certain things that are hard to control, right? Like, and it's hard to control the kicker. Like he's got to just go make the swing. So I thought Alvano did a pretty good job in the most recent game, but at the same time, there's going to be games when it's 45-yard field goal to win. Everybody knows what he did in high school. He's got college. It's not powerlessness, but there's a certain level of you just give it to them and to make the kick. I think red zone offense has been pretty good, but there's been some moments down there where I'm sure there's things they would like to do differently. The touchdown percentage probably isn't exactly what they want it to be. Could Dillon have just run that in if he had just stayed out and just outran the defender to the corner on that one play? That's possible. Dillon's faster than I think maybe even he thinks. I don't know.
Sam, Nebraska was
kept on that line.
Sam, Nebraska was 4 for 4 in the red zone. You mean specific
touchdown
to
percentage?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, their red zone offense is. I think I put it in the rewind today. I think it's 71%. Right. So it's not among the best.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
We might have lost.
And that'll change. That changes. But the touchdown percentage is around 51. And what you want it to be is above 70 to 75. That's where Nebraska's best offenses have been. And again, could Dillon have outrun that guy? I think he probably could have. And he tried to cut it back, which he would have scored that way too. But the wonderful field turf monster got it. So, there's things they can improve on. The reality is you got to see him play a series of teams in a row that have the same kinds of rosters, the same kind of NIL funding, the same level of transfers. And, they're going to play in a row. They're going to play Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, and Indiana. I think all of those programs are either peer or just slightly below peer to Nebraska. And then they're going to play several teams that have been better than Nebraska over the last however many years. And we'll get a sense of that. They could go 2-2 in the next 3 games or in the next 4 games. They could go 2-2. They could go 3-1. They could go 4-0. They're not going to go 0-4. But 2-2, 3-1, and 4-0 is kind of where they're at. They could win them all. They could lose one. these are all games that, they're probably going to be favored by 10 or less. They'll be favored probably in every game, and they'll have an opportunity to win each game. They'll have an opportunity to lose each game. So we'll know a lot more about this team over the next month. We'll know a lot more in the next 3 weeks, but we'll know a lot more by the time they finish playing Indiana.
Sam, is there anything that you think Nebraska hasn't shown yet in the non-conference that you expect to see more of by the time they finish this month stretch you're talking about?
I think they'll have defensive wrinkles that we haven't seen. I think that they will have things on offense that we have not seen. And I don't know exactly what those things look like yet, but I do think we're going to see more from the offense. They've shown a lot already. I mean, they put a lot on tape, especially as it relates to Ja'Cory Barney. But it's hard not to watch Carter Nelson and think about what else they could do. I mean, and Damon's the former player here, but Carter Nelson, to me, looks like one of the more athletic players that Nebraska's had in some time.
Yeah, I don't know about that as much as I'm happy right now with them playing to his strengths, right? Kind of isolation out in space. Like, just do that. Like, and I think they'll be fine with kind of walking him through the baby portions of that, because so far I just think they're playing to his strengths that way. You don't ask him to do too much for a while, but they got a lot of guys that could play in the slot like that. They just don't have a lot of guys that are 6'5" that are playing in the slot like that.
He's doing things at that height that are rare.
That's pretty good. It's a pretty good target.
Yeah, he's really, really, he moves really well for a guy his size, and he can run after the catch. So he's not just a guy that's catching the ball and then falling down because he had a 27-yard catch over the middle. He's able to catch the ball and run. And so, I think we're going to see more with him. I think we're going to see more with Barney. I think we're going to see more with Lloyd. I think they have a lot more planned on offense. Yeah. And they have a very creative offensive coordinator. That guy can draw up a whole bunch of plays. That's one thing that Satterfield's really gifted at. And so they're going to have some opportunities to do some cool stuff, I'm sure. And they got the quarterback who can make the throws. Dylan Rhule has not, he's played very well. He's been perfect. No one expected him to be. But he's made some great throws already in 3 games.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's the Cricket Man, DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
Nothing.
You could hear a cricket now. You couldn't. I mean, before it was deafening where you had to get a timeout.
Wasn't that eerily quiet, though?
It was. It went from like crazy loud to silent almost immediately.
Yeah, whatever.
You did that on purpose.
I want you to know something. My man Boyce, my digital coupon guy, and I didn't know he was a photog either, but he's a really good photographer.
Yeah.
He's with me on the cricket thing, too, by the way.
And he thinks they're smarter than you?
No.
You could hear a cricket now. You could.
Well, apparently they're smarter than Boyce, too, because he has one in his garage you can't find.
Okay, tell me the truth here. So somebody, I think on Twitter, hit us both up.
Yeah.
And was like, you got to say something about a cricket on the air.
Yeah.
Did you see that and that's why you did it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've done that before, too, on broadcast.
Yeah, he just didn't think I could work it in.
Yeah, it's funny.
I can do that.
Oh, that was good.
Plus,
I'm going to start texting you weird stuff I want you to say on the air.
Sharpie's so good. Like, I don't know. I just like our back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just really, it's easy.
I mean, cricket's an easy one to work in. That's not terrible.
But he's good. So he's not he can bring up music.
Yeah.
He's got different references. He's got a huge Rolodex.
Yeah, he's got versatility.
So it makes those kinds of things seem relatively normal.
Yeah. Well, it makes for a more fun broadcast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, both for you, I'm sure, and for the listener.
Yeah. And Coates up above us.
Yeah.
And he's always got jokes.
Coatney?
Oh.
Yeah. So how many people are like in your booth? Is Putney in there?
So, well, it depends on if he's on, like sometimes if he's the pinch hitter, he may be in there.
And then Benny Mack, is he usually in there?
Yep. That's Greg Spotter.
And then you got Coatney in there. What's Coatney doing?
He does like the highlights.
Okay.
And
because I know it is post game stuff, but like in game.
in the in-game breaks.
And then Jess is down on the field.
She's on the field.
Okay.
Yeah, I was talking to her one time, and she was actually working, and I was like, "Hello, hello, oh, that's her. We're hearing on the." She's doing her highlight thing.
I gotta come down and see your setup sometime. Like, I want to see what it looks like.
So it's very crowded.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not in game, obviously, but like before.
But
the game.
up above is fine.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, Nate Rohr comes in every time before. Like he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the PA guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make some noise.
I just want to see the setup. Like I don't go down that hall.
Yeah.
I stop at the food place because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm not supposed to go down there, so I don't go down there.
So apparently there's skyboxes down there. I didn't know that.
I know there is on the other end, like the other direction, because I always see people coming in.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Or then the coaches are down there too, because if you try and go to the bathroom during the wrong time at halftime, they're like, to the side, please, for the coaches.
Yeah.
I guess, sir.
So I use that service elevator. I don't use the regular elevator.
The one down on the.
Yep.
Okay.
Way to the north, on the very far north end. So I run into a lot of buns and dollies and
buns.
Well, people transport food on there.
Okay. I was like, I don't know what that means.
So
didn't know like man buns. I didn't know if that was like a.
I'm notorious for missing my door.
Like you go past the booth.
So I committed it to memory yesterday or Saturday that it's 6:22. And now the lady thinks she's funny because like for a year and a half she points at the right door. I have opened the wrong door.
That's a long time to not know what door it is.
Well, sometimes you just get preoccupied.
You just like cruising on by.
Oh shoot, those aren't our coaches.
Yeah.
Or oh shoot, those are the coaches. Or oh shoot, that's not our booth. So sometimes she just points at it like an air traffic control.
Wander into the TV booth.
Yeah. But that one's easy.
You'd be like, hey, BTN, let's go.
Now, out of habit, sometimes I will go in there because a lot of times I'm, state finals.
Yeah,
like
sure.
And I used to always be in there.
What do you say to the lady that makes her laugh?
You could hear a cricket now. You couldn't.
This is the week one. I missed it.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm going to get you a compass.
That's not going to help.
And I said, oh, shoot, I've said jokes like that before, but usually it's when I'm in other states and I'm lost, not
like in Minneapolis. Can't find a stadium.
Yeah, not on the 6th floor with very limited possibilities.
There's only so many doors you could choose from, DB.
Yeah, I don't need you to remind me about that.
No, it's okay.
I'll figure it out.
I got a,
622.
622. We got it. We're on lockdown.
622.
Let me ask you about some non-Nebraska college football we had this weekend. If you want, or we can talk about something else.
No, I like that. Although TG, who's usually your biggest supporter, would like to ask you a question.
Go ahead. What do we got?
And this is funny on the heels of how our back and forth went this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know.
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, Tony.
What's up, Tony?
Is it just me, or is Ravi Lulla stopped talking about how much of a lock the over is on the Iowa win total?
Oh no, it's a lock. I made another bet with you.
So we yes, full disclosure, however much I had accrued, we have now doubled down.
Yeah.
That Iowa does not get to 9.
Yeah, I'm saying they will. I gave you 8.5. I gave you a whole other extra game from the one that I got at 7.5.
Yeah.
My over is 7.5. Like, come on, guys. Mine with you is 8.5 because I gave you the extra game even.
So Tony,
we're supremely confident.
We're going back and forth during the Troy game while I'm in the booth.
Yeah.
I'm like, go Troy. Hey, what's the Troy score?
Well, because it was like Troy took a 14-10 on a punt return.
And I was like, come on, stay under 9.
And then
you laughed and you're like, damn.
Yeah. And then Iowa put it out to 24-14. And then they put their backup.
Yeah, because I came to see you in the booth.
Yeah, and you got mad because you're like, it's 24-14 now.
I was like,
and then almost immediately,
Troy
throws a 70-yard bomb, and I was like, we might have spoke too soon.
Then they ended up pulling away. I mean, nobody can host Troy like Andrew Bunch in Nebraska did.
If they had lost to Troy, I'd be a little worried. But I expect Iowa to win ugly. I'm not.
And they actually ended up scoring.
And between Phil Parker and LeVar Woods,
A couple geniuses.
Those units are going to get better throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure.
And the offense was the question mark, right? And the offense is better, clearly. I don't know how good it is, but it's better. And that was my only variable. So I will take my chances with LeVar Woods and Phil Parker figuring it out.
All right. You hear that, Tony?
I feel all right. I'm just not going to, I'm not going to talk a lot about Iowa until it's time. Till it is time.
It is time. There were a couple of, I almost had South Carolina outright. But
Yeah.
I did nail UNLV.
UNLV's, I think, a good football team.
His points were a gift.
I also think maybe Kansas isn't who we thought they were.
And I know South Carolina covered. I actually thought they would win.
Yeah, just about.
Kansas can't take care of the football.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's a real problem.
So again, here's Nebraska fan again. Do you remember what everybody wanted Lance Leipold? I'm like, I don't know if I remember everybody wanting him as much as acknowledging that he's a good coach.
Yeah, and that he
I don't remember the whole wanting him.
He was
thing.
nobody's first option. He was like a safety school for Nebraska. That's how the people around me.
Isn't that? Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, hey, he's a good coach. Not our first
like,
choice.
were people putting him in the top 5? Do we remember?
Maybe back end, like maybe 5.
Okay.
But not.
It was after Lane Kiffin, right?
I love Kiffin. I would have put Kiffin ahead of him.
Yeah, they're laying waste to folks.
But I think Kleinman was ahead of him because he's a little younger. And people like Chris Kleinman.
Yeah.
But another guy. Since we're doing this today, apparently. Now that Iowa State's ranked again, can Matt Campbell coach again, or? Because that's a guy that people were like, "Oh God, we can't hire Matt Campbell. That'd be terrible." I was like, "I'm pretty sure he's really good at coaching football. I don't know if he's the first choice or the best choice, but you could do a hell of a lot worse than Matt Campbell. Like a hell of a lot worse."
He said, "Since we're doing this again."
I mean,
back in the day.
I'm just gonna. They're 2-0 and they're ranked. I mean, he's good again, and he forgot how to coach for a couple years after he lost.
Is Freeman a good coach again?
Apparently, 66-7. Yeah, I guess he's okay now.
That was sick.
42 at half. Speaking of which, you see Tennessee had 66 at halftime.
Yeah.
What did Kent State do to him?
I don't know, but he only finished at 71, so apparently it wasn't too bad.
Apparently he apologized at halftime.
Yeah. My bad.
Hey, sorry about that, bro. We do this with coaches all the time.
Right now.
Yeah.
Would you take Cameron Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
Ooh, I like Cam Ward a lot. I probably would take Cam Ward. Not just right now. You probably could have asked me that any time over the last year.
Really?
Yeah, I like Cam Ward a lot. I always have.
Huh.
I don't know as a pro prospect, but as a college football player, I'll take Cam Ward. We'll get to some more college football stuff coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we're brought to you by our friends at Ep Foundation Repair. They'll be back with us again on Friday as well.
Let's go.
As we've got our live show. DB's been thinking about that breakfast sandwich for about a week now, or 3 weeks now.
Thinking about the breakfast.
Trying to get some breakfast sandwich here, which is presented by Ep Foundation Repair.
Have we seen the menu?
I think it's the same. I'll double check, but I think it's the same.
You talk to people?
Yeah, I'll talk to some
people. Do we know the same people?
Probably. I mean, Ep Foundation Repair you can find them at epconcrete.com. They've got over 25 years of experience, and they specialize in foundation repair, basement waterproofing, crawl space encapsulation, everything that you need to make sure your home is safe and secure from all the elements. epconcrete.com. And make sure you join us, eventbrite.com, search Hurrdat Sports Radio to reserve your ticket. Come hang out with me and DB, who's always super personable in the mornings.
I'm great.
He's gonna be nice and friendly and wave to all the people. And
always
wear his glasses so he can read and see everybody.
Yeah, whatever. God, that sounds just like me.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that. Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
You know what? You want to talk about? Tony asked me why I'm not talking about Iowa, which is just because it's a lock. Why you got to talk about it?
Wow, lock it up, he says.
You want to know a team I haven't been talking about much lately? The Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah. I almost got myself kicked off.
Why?
I was just going to give him a nickname.
Oh, yeah, don't do that. Let's just keep it PG here.
Right.
PG, They've got,
especially on the heels of Steele now becoming a primary running back in Kansas City.
They've got the
God bless his name.
Blessing of the tribe. So we'll just leave it at that, No, so I've got I've got a lot of questions there.
Well, you got a lot. You probably have more answers.
You think?
Yeah, not a good football team.
Okay,
That's your primary answer.
that's fair. But this is one of those, like, on talent alone, they shouldn't be this bad, right?
correct.
Okay, so that's kind of where we have to start this conversation, because they are a very bad football team. And they're not an untalented football team. So that leads me to the question of, like, okay, so what the F is happening? And I've come up with two ideas, and I don't know if
Time out.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I said, what the front door is happening?
Okay.
Hello, friend.
All right. Seemed like a bit much.
What the French Lick, Indiana is happening?
Got you.
It's my guy, Larry Bird.
French Lick's finest.
So I've come up with two theories, and I don't know if either of them are valid. That's what I need you for, DB.
Oh, geez. All right. I'm listening.
All right. Number one.
I've got my concentration hat on.
I know you're locked in. I can tell. You got your headphones covered like you're at Memorial Stadium during the Colorado game. And you got to be able to hear the call.
Yep.
Number one, if you have a quarterback that everybody on the team knows can't get it done, can that infect the whole team?
Yes.
I'm genuinely asking, because I don't know.
Yes.
Like, if everybody on Florida State's team has seen DJU and they're like, this guy sucks, I don't know what to tell you. He's bad in practice. He's bad in games. Like, that could ruin a whole season, right? Even if you're talented at other places.
Yes.
Because it's a miracle that has never happened at, like, Iowa, right? Like with Deacon Hill and stuff.
Well, maybe.
Because it'd be easy for it, too. Last year especially.
But I don't know if Iowa knows any different.
Fair. Last year, Florida State knew different.
Right.
Okay.
And they have known different. They've had prolific quarterback play. Because even Iowa's good quarterbacks
are pretty average.
Because they had a run on
In the grand
quarterbacks that were playing in the league, right?
Yeah, like CJ Beathard, Ricky Stanzi.
Stanzi was on NFL rosters, right? I don't
think
know.
Beathard still is.
I don't know if real time, like, Iowa fans appreciate him.
Oh, for sure they did.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the culture there isn't to pedestal those guys.
Sure. That makes
so
sense.
I don't know if they know any better.
Okay, fair. But if you've got a guy that everybody knows stinks, that can ruin the whole locker room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my theory number one, is that everybody knows DJU is terrible and that they're just like, well, what are we doing?
So if DJU was not a rental, do you think people would be more patient? Because he could be looked at as not one of them. But in the age of NIL,
a lot of guys
aren't like that.
And Florida State's been reasonably transfer heavy, so I don't know that.
But what did we hear about Dylan Gabriel? Oh, man, he's so inviting.
Yeah.
Oh, man, from the moment he's got here. And he's been at 27 schools.
So it could be an individual. Like, some guys ingratiate themselves into a culture faster.
I like the word. It's a good word.
Even
something Dr. Gold would use.
A guy that I don't particularly love.
Boy, is that guy smart.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
He's got some good jobs.
Yes.
A guy that I don't particularly love. You heard this about Russell Wilson up at Wisconsin, right? He got there in the summer, became a captain like a week later. People loved him. Like, he was really good at becoming part of that team.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody's going to be like
this
that.
This is before Let's Ride, Russ.
Yes, this was early Russ before he became insufferable.
This is when my man Jason Hurd dubbed him Super Russ.
Yeah. Now he's insufferable Russ.
Yeah.
So you've got guys, but I could see how that's a thing where if he's not that type of personality, DJU, where it'd be hard to kind of buy into him as a person, especially if he's not being successful, right? Here's the other thing that I thought of, and I don't know if this is real or not either, so I need help.
Definitely.
Well, that's for other stuff.
Did I not hear your first segment?
So don't even make me go back to the Bo Pelini with those 4-star wide receivers. Monty Harrison's playing at Arkansas. You know that?
Wow.
I think Bo's still waiting for Bubba Starling to enroll.
Well, Bubba couldn't see. Like, that was his problem. He got eye surgery.
Also couldn't hit, which didn't help a lot either.
Well, it's because he couldn't see, Robbie.
I can't read. So Mike Norvell was a candidate for the Alabama job. Mm-hmm. This came out in an article after Kalen DeBoer got hired, that the first calls were Sarkisian and Mike Norvell. Is it possible that flirtation went a little further than
you think Norvell is preoccupied?
I don't know
with what could have been?
Well, I don't know if he's preoccupied, but it reminds me of a situation with, obviously this went way further, but you remember You remember the teams that Creighton had before Dana Altman and the Arkansas thing and after? It was different.
Right.
I don't know why, but it was different. And I don't have a good reason. I don't know that he's preoccupied. I don't think that he's not working as hard, but like pre-Arkansas Dana Altman and post-Arkansas Dana Altman were totally different teams at Creighton, totally different guys. It just never looked the same again. Is that a real thing?
I mean, it could be, but I don't know how much, again, Norvell entertained it.
I don't either.
But I do think something is interesting with that whole dynamic. I wonder with administration, were they always on the same page about the vision of the conference affiliation? Because, a lot was
like Norvell and administration and
all being in the ACC. Yeah.
Okay. Like the alignment of athletic.
I do kind of wonder about that.
Because we know if the alignment's not right, we've seen that here. It goes bad.
Because the bottom has fallen out in a hurry.
Yeah. That does not appear to be a football team that was on solid foundation.
Yeah, so this isn't nearly funny anymore because they have to go 3-6 the rest of the way. But do you remember when Ryan said this is a 3-9 team?
Yeah.
That seemed kind of like
I made a bet with him too that I think I'm going to lose. Because he said they're not making a bowl game. I was like, come on, man, they're making a bowl game. No, I don't think they're making a bowl game.
Well, that schedule is like, yeah,
it gets on top of them in a hurry.
Wow, you went there, huh?
Well, so this was 2 weeks ago. So it was like midway.
Yeah, you thought you'd be safe as a kid. No?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Simba, I'm very disappointed.
This was like at the beginning. I think it was during the Boston College game.
Knock it off, Shane.
I think it was during the BC game. I was like, they're going to make a bowl game. Come on, man.
So is Cal good?
I don't know. They might be better than Florida State, though.
I think Cal might be pretty good.
They might be. They got some wins.
Do you know what the line is? What would you make the line?
Where's that?
Cal going to Tallahassee. Sorry, Ryan.
It's unnecessary.
I don't have anything against Tallahassee.
I've never actually been there. It's just I named a dog after Tallahassee, so I'm a little partial.
You called a dog Tallahassee?
She went by Tally, but yeah, her name was Tallahassee.
Oh, that's where Tally came from?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tallahassee is like too many syllables for a dog.
But her Christian name was Tallahassee.
Her government?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I swear Tally.
But yeah, she went by Tally.
What would you make the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cal's got to be. I would have Cal favored personally. I don't know that they will.
They're traveling from one corner of the country to the other.
Yeah,
for a 6 p.m. tilt.
I think I would make Cal 2.5-point favorites.
Florida State is a 2-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense for what the perception is going to be of those two teams. But from like watching those two teams, Cal should be favored. Florida State's really bad.
There's some weird lines.
Like really bad. You know what this Florida State team reminds me of? Like late stage Bobby Bowden, where they were still recruiting really well, but they could not coach or play dead. Like the late 2000s Bobby Bowden teams. That's what this reminds me of.
Hey, Shane.
Just 0%.
If you're Iowa and you're going to Minnesota, both teams are 2-1. What would you make that point spread?
Going to Minnesota?
Iowa at Minnesota. 6:30 NBC.
Prime time.
Prime time. I'd probably make it a 4.
It is 2.5 Hawkeyes.
Stinks to high heavens.
It seems like it should be more.
Stinks to high heavens.
I get the rivalry thing, but doesn't Iowa own them?
Stinks. I was going to win by 1 to not cover, but to keep my over intact.
You know what the total is?
Like 12?
36.
Basically 12.
12 apiece.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. We're going to be back talking to Will Backus to get a little national college football perspective coming next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by Will Backus. He is a college football writer for CBS Sports. Will, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, guys. Tennessee and Nebraska are both good at football, so it feels like a time from before I was born. excited to talk about some college football.
It's interesting too because my partner here, tucked here in the middle of America, is a huge Florida State fan. So they're not good. So he's traumatized about what's wrong with college football.
Someone had to take the sacrifice to get a couple other blue bloods back to relevancy, I guess. So
I'll take that bullet for Nebraska to be good. That's fine.
You know what's interesting though, and you're like, I'm on with these guys in Nebraska, and this first question is out of nowhere, and it's partly because I like Justin Wilcox. The other part is because they are going to Tallahassee. But is Cal good? Because I want them to be. Now, full disclosure, my sister was a professor out there before she went to San Francisco, but so I'm interested in Cal. But can you see them being good? Florida State's just a 2-point favorite.
I think Cal has been pretty solid this year, and I would go so far as to say a little surprising. That win at Auburn was huge. Hugh Freeze is good for kind of one head-scratching loss per year. So,
yeah,
I'm not sure if that's like the best measuring stick for, how good Cal really is. But, it was a good win. And the fact that they shut Auburn down offensively when Auburn has put so much effort into improving that offense was impressive to me. And, I don't want to dig on Florida State more, but I'm also not sure if Florida State's the best metric for measuring if a team is good. But, if they walk into Tallahassee and come out with a comfortable win, I still think that's impressive. But, yeah, I think Cal is probably a pretty solid bowl team. Looking at their schedule this year, I could see them getting to, 7 or 8 wins, which would be really good for them. I like their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. He's a dude that can get it done with his arm and legs. He's an exciting player to watch. And then, of course, they've got, one of the best running backs in the country in Jaden Ott. They've got, he was hurt against San Diego State and didn't play, but I don't think it's anything serious. But they've got a good offense and an offense that's fun to watch out there.
Let me ask you something. Considering Cal is going to Tallahassee and bring it back to the Big Ten, when you look at, and Coach Rhule talked about this at Big Ten Media Days, how he thinks people should look at the Big Ten Conference differently with the 3 different time zones and the travel and manipulating the long season. When you look at conference play as it gets ready to get ramped up, will you take those things into consideration when you try to critique the conferences from top to bottom?
Yeah, I think the travel schedule is tough. You look at a team like UCLA, they're, traveling an absurd amount this year. They've got to go to LSU this weekend, and, that's just non-conference. They played at Hawaii earlier in the year. I'm pretty sure they got a game at Rutgers, so they're just going all over the place. And so, yeah, I think it's hard to kind of evaluate a team like that when you look at their travel schedule and you're thinking, do they ever even have time to, like, sit down and feel settled? They don't have the advantage of, being comfortable because they have to adjust things to go all around the country. And so, yeah, I think the hop in time zones does make it hard to evaluate this year because it's kind of the first year that a lot of these teams are figuring it out. It's the first year that they've got schedules like this. And so there's probably a lot of logistical things that they're having to really adjust on the fly and get used to. So it does make it a little difficult to kind of figure out, how good some of these teams really are. And I feel like travel is something that doesn't get talked about a lot when you talk about, how hard it is to win games, because it's difficult to just be across the country every single week, especially if you're a college student who's also trying to do school, and you've got to worry about, taking class on the plane or whatever. And so, it's an interesting kind of metric that I don't think people consider a lot. And I think it's definitely going to have a huge impact this year, as a lot of teams kind of get used to the weird new travel schedules that they have.
Well, let me stick with the Big Ten here for a second. Out of the teams that a lot of people expected to be college football playoff contenders, who would you rather be right now? Michigan, Oregon, or Penn State?
That's a good question. And I would probably rather be Penn State right now, just because I look at Penn State's schedule. They don't have to play Michigan. They don't have to play Oregon. They got to go to USC, which I think is going to be – that looks like a tougher game now than it did maybe before the beginning of the year. And then they do also have to play Ohio State. But if those are the only two losses that you have as Penn State, at USC and at home against Ohio State, then I think that there's an argument that they could probably still make the playoffs. And I think what's really impressed me about Penn State this year is their offense has taken some huge strides with new offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. He's got Drew Aller playing the best football of his young career. You know, he finally looks like that kind of 5-star prospect that we expected him to be when he first showed up there, and that the recruiting rankings had him as. And so, you know, I think their offense being revitalized is huge for them because they've always had solid defense under James Franklin. Now to pair that with a creative, fun offense, you know, they can make some noise. Not saying that they're going to beat Ohio State, but you know, I think that'll be a close game. And then I think that they have the ability to go on the road and beat USC. And the rest of that schedule is wide open for them. You know, I think they'll be favored in just about every game outside of those two. And so I like their path. Whereas, you know, a Michigan team still has to play Ohio State and Oregon. And, you know, they've also got some other tough games.
Shoot, they got USC this weekend.
Yeah, USC this weekend. And so, like, that's a brutal schedule. That's a hard path for them, especially since they haven't looked great. And Oregon also has had some issues, too. So I think Penn State probably looks like the most complete team out of those three, and they've got the easiest path by far.
Well, and we've seen what Kansas has looked like without Kotelnicki. All right, so with teams, let's say kind of the same type of question, but with teams that people didn't expect much out of this year, would you rather be Illinois, Indiana, Michigan State, or Rutgers?
That's a good one. I'm going to say Indiana, just because I am a huge, huge Kurt Signetti fan. He is
stole the show in Indy,
coach.
as much as an Indiana coach could.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic coach. He's a hilarious guy, super quotable. So obviously, you know, media types absolutely love him. But yeah, I mean, I just think that he's just a great ball coach. And I said before the season, I think I had Indiana as my most underrated team in the Big Ten. Not because I thought that they were going to go out and win a bunch of games and, you know, compete for the Big Ten title, but I could definitely see them getting to that, you know, 7-win threshold where, you know, they make a bowl game. And then this is something that they can build on going forward, where you start to maybe think of them next year as, okay, well, maybe they're a top 25 seed. And then they just keep building. Because that's what Kurt Signetti does. He just builds. I love the way that he builds his roster. I think he's super smart about it. He's really great at getting his guys that fit his scheme. And it helps that he brought a lot of guys from James Madison with him to Indiana. So they're really familiar with how he operates and a lot of his philosophies. And so just that continuity and just the way he builds things and the way he approaches things, I would love to be Indiana right now.
Who stands the most to gain with a win in Ann Arbor, USC or Michigan?
I would probably say USC, and that's only because I just don't view Michigan as a college football playoff team at this point. And I think if they win Saturday, you're still staring down a schedule that's just going to be super tough to, you know, conjure up probably the 10-win threshold that you need to get to, you know, feel good about your playoff chances. Whereas USC, like, this would be a huge kind of statement victory. This could be a victory that they point at in, you know, December when the selection committee is putting out their final rankings, and, you know, maybe USC is on the bubble with another 10-win team, but then USC can point at it and say, well, we went into Michigan and beat, you know, the reigning national champions, a 15-0 team. You know, like, that's a huge win for the resume. Even if Michigan doesn't look that great, that's still a win that resonates in a game that resonates. So I think it would be huge for USC's college football playoff chances. And also it would be one of those games where, you know, Lincoln Riley can really kind of stamp his foot down on a lot of narratives, you know, because if you go into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan, that's going to be a super physical game. And it's going to be a tough environment. And Lincoln Riley's teams have always been questioned on their physicality. They've always been questioned on their ability to match up against teams that we perceive as dominant in the trenches. So, you know, you go in there and that takes a huge hit to that narrative. But I think USC, it would do a lot for them this season.
We're talking with Will Backus of CBS Sports. Will, is there a team nationally that you look at as kind of fraudulent right now, where you're like, yeah, that's not who they are?
Let's see. Fraudulent team nationally. I would probably have to say so far Oklahoma. And I think that's because I've still seen quite a few, and I know Nebraska people are probably super excited to hear me say that. But I've seen quite a few people that are projecting Oklahoma, still maybe as a college football playoff team, 10-win type team. But I have not seen what I've seen from them as a team that is going to seriously struggle in the SEC. And they've got a brutal schedule. I don't think that they've looked like a top 15 team so far. That offense is completely disjointed. Offensive line, they lost all 5 starters along the offensive line, and they just have not been able to adequately replace that. And so Jackson Arnold's getting lit up on a week-to-week basis. It's really hard for them to get into sync when their offensive line is struggling so bad. They've also had the unfortunate, I think they missed probably 3 of their top 4 wide receivers to injury this year. And so that's unfortunate. That's something that you can't control. But yeah, they just haven't found their footing offensively, and they're a great defensive team, which you would expect for Brent Venables, but they just can't put points on the board, and that's not going to do when you've got a schedule that has Tennessee and Texas and teams like that waiting to play. And so I would say Oklahoma so far, they just haven't really looked like a top 15 team to me, and I could see them potentially dropping out of the top 25 at some point this year.
Of the maybe better than we think, but still waiting to see group, you like Louisville, Oklahoma State, or I'm going to give you one that's kind of off the grid, but Kansas State.
I have been a big Oklahoma State proponent for the longest time. And that's just because when I evaluate teams early in the year, especially preseason, I love to see continuity. And Oklahoma State had 21 starters come back off of last year's team that went to the Big 12 championship game. But then they were picked 3rd in the Big 12 preseason media poll. And so that didn't really, that didn't necessarily jive with me. I thought it was kind of weird. And so I think Oklahoma State, I'm still pretty high on them. There was obviously that whole Arkansas fiasco. Still not entirely sure what Arkansas is this year, so maybe that is a game that ends up at the end of the year looking a little bit better than we may have perceived. And I just like their continuity. I like their ability to go far. I think Mike Gundy is, probably right up there with Kyle Whittingham as the best coach in the Big 12. He's a guy that's just hard not to trust to get his team to get the job done. And Oklahoma State is winning games, and their Heisman caliber running back, Ollie Gordon, is averaging like 3 yards a carry. He's not having a good year. And he's like the guy that you would have pointed to coming into the season saying, okay, if Oklahoma State's going to have a huge year, then it's going to be behind Ollie Gordon. But he's not. He's not had a good year. And so they're still winning these games 3-0, and he's not turned it on yet. When he really gets going, Oklahoma State could be on a different level, and they start to be that team that you're like, okay, well, maybe this could be a playoff team. Maybe this could be a team that wins the Big 12. And so I've been impressed with how they've found ways to win games, even if their best player is really not, hit his stride yet or really started to get going.
I do think Stribling is one of the better kept secrets in that conference. So he's got a chance to be a prolific wide receiver.
Yeah, and having a guy that's as experienced as, Alan Bowman delivering the ball, he's not a top tier quarterback, but he's one of those solid veteran guys that you can always kind of count on. He was big in the Arkansas game. He had a rough start, but then he kind of turned it on in the second half. And, he's just a really solid guy. And I they've got talent outside of Ollie Gordon, obviously. And I think their defense is definitely one of those kind of under the radar units. I think their secondary has made some decent strides this year, especially. And so, I look at them and I see them as a team that could definitely make some noise.
Well, you mentioned Arkansas as a team you're not really sure what to make of yet. They play another team that I would kind of throw in that category in Auburn. Do we learn anything from this week, or just because we don't know who either of those teams are, we're going to have to wait a little bit further along down the road?
UAB was all over them, man. I was like, wow, who's going first, Napier or Pittman?
Yeah, and that's why, like, I I'm really struggling with what to make of them this year because they come out in week 1, put 70 points on the board. They look like world beaters. And next week they push Oklahoma State to the brink, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they're pretty solid this year. And then last week, they only win by 10 points against a team that's coached by Trent Dilfer, and you're like, okay, well, maybe they are who we thought they were. But yeah, I think the Auburn game is probably going to be a good indication of where either of those teams are really. Especially with Arkansas going on the road. I'm not sure if either of them. They're certainly not elite teams. I think that they have the potential to be good teams, but both of them still have a lot to prove this year, especially, with Auburn having that setback to Cal already and Arkansas looking like a complete roller coaster. I think, either team that comes out of that with a win, you feel good about being probably a solid bowl team. And then the other one, you start to think, okay, maybe this year could be a bit tough. But also with Arkansas, like after Auburn, they've got to play at Texas A&M, at home against Tennessee, and then at home against LSU. And so that's a brutal stretch of games to come after Auburn. And so, this is a big chance for them to build momentum towards that really tough stretch. And it's going to be a key game for them, if they want to look at the end of the year and have any sort of postseason to look forward to.
Well, from the outside looking in, I kind of know the fever pitch this thing is close to getting to in Nebraska, but yet we still say things like, "Ooh, I'm leery of going to Indiana," or "Oh, watch out for Rutgers," or "Can we handle the first road game against Purdue?" So there's still a little trepidation to be all in, but what's the 30,000-foot view of Nebraska's quick ascension this year?
I mean, I've been impressed, and honestly, given Matt Rhule's track record, I wouldn't even say that it was entirely unexpected. I mean, based off of some people that I've talked to, a lot of people have been pretty high on Nebraska this year. I think Dylan Rhule has been probably a lot better than people would have expected, just given the fact that he's a true freshman. And he's coming out making throws that you would expect a guy that's been in college for 3 years to make. And it's clear that the staff has all the confidence in the world with him. Like, they're not treating him with kid gloves. They're letting him go out there and sling it. And so, I think that them finally having a really solid, quarterback that they can rely on and that they're not worried about being a liability has unlocked a lot of things for them. I think there is obviously a little trepidation just given what Nebraska has been in the past and recently. I think that's why a lot of people are still a little uncertain, against teams like maybe in Illinois or in Indiana. But yeah, I mean, we talked about Arkansas having a chance to make an impression. I think these next 4 weeks are big for Nebraska's chance to make an impression, because you got to play Illinois, Rutgers, and Indiana. And those are teams that have kind of been in the same tier as Nebraska for a really long time. So if they can create some distance from those teams, I think that's when you start to really feel good about, okay, this might be getting closer to the Nebraska teams of old. This might be getting closer to the Nebraska teams that we can expect to compete for titles or kind of ascend into that next tier of the conference. So I've liked what I've seen from them so far. I think that they have done a really great job. I think that they look like a good team. I think they're worthy of a top 25 spot just based off of what they've accomplished so far. But yeah, the next 4 weeks I think are going to be pretty telling, especially going up to that Ohio State game.
If there's going to be a Lazarus project, who's the best case study? Notre Dame, Clemson, or LSU?
I would probably say Notre Dame.
Because of the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think the schedule's pretty favorable for them. I mean, Clemson's got a super favorable schedule too. And obviously Clemson also has the benefit of having the ability to play in a conference championship. So I think Clemson's a good case. And I mean, Clemson losing 34-3 to Georgia, I mean, a lot of teams are going to do that this year. And a lot of teams that we would look at and say, well, they're pretty good teams otherwise, are going to do that this year. But I mean, Notre Dame's schedule is their toughest game left is a road game against USC in the season finale. And again, USC is looking like a really good team, so I'm not poo-pooing on that game. But, the other teams they play are Stanford and Navy and Army and Virginia and Florida State, like that, they should win those games in a landslide. And the way they came out against Purdue on fire and absolutely just demolishing Purdue on the road, I think was impressive, because that could have been a point where after such a backbreaking loss, you see a team come out and kind of mope around and maybe even put themselves in danger again. But I think that they came out, and Purdue's not a good team, but they came out and made a statement with that. It's also Riley Leonard. He's not a great traditional quarterback, but he is a super athletic guy that can win you a lot of games with his legs. And Notre Dame's defense is going to keep him in pretty much every game that they play. So as long as, Riley Leonard can bust enough plays with his legs and they can, play good ball control, I think Notre Dame should probably be able to win out. And then you're looking at them again as a college football playoff team, and that Northern Illinois loss is way in the rearview mirror.
That's Will Backus from CBS Sports. Will, we appreciate the time, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate y'all.
That's Will Backus from CBS Sports. Good stuff there. There's a lot of things I feel like we don't know yet still in college football.
Yeah, the Lazarus thing. I keep an eye
I
on.
would have thrown Texas A&M in there a little bit too.
What are they, 22 or something? Yeah, they're top 25,
21, right? I think. But I don't
Did
feel like
you
I
like
know.
the way they looked against Florida? Because I didn't.
I didn't either. I don't think Florida's good. So that tinges everything. But also, the way they played against Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame goes losing to Northern Illinois. I go, okay, is Notre Dame good? Are they not good? What does that mean for Texas A&M? I don't know what to do with Texas A&M yet. I know they have a ton of talent. I also know they chronically underperformed, regardless of who the head coach is.
This is crazy. It's just because I follow him because of Dom, and they recruited Caleb. But I would have said going into this week that Vandy Missouri game was going to be pretty interesting.
And then Vandy goes and lays an egg last week.
Then Georgia State happened.
Yeah.
So, but I still think that game. I still think 20.5 is a lot.
Yeah.
I watch Missouri and I'm just like, something's missing. Like if and I base it on this, like if 6, 7, 8 is Missouri, Tennessee, and I can't remember who 8 is. Somebody right there in that same vein. Tennessee clearly looks better than the other two.
Yeah, Tennessee seems low at 6. Missouri seems high at 7.
Right? Like
Penn State and Oregon are right in there too.
So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that Tennessee and Missouri.
I look at Tennessee and Missouri. I'm like,
I look at them as wholly different levels of programs right now.
Me too.
Coming up next, we'll get to more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Easy there, Shano. It's easy on the music there.
Easy on the music.
It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook.
Still mad over the Little Richard reference.
Which one?
Good golly, Miss Molly.
You big Little Richard guy?
I don't look like a Little Richard.
Not a. Not a Little Richard, the Little Richard.
You're acting like a Little Richard.
That's not.
You're
that
not
had
looking like the
that
Little
had
Richard.
not a darn thing to do with what I said. Wow.
Make sure you get out to the Warhorse Sportsbook in Lincoln today for the Monday night
mad about the first segment
tailgate drawings every Monday in September. So this week and next week, 8 and 9 p.m. drawings for Yeti coolers, free slot play, and tickets to see the Chiefs play on October 7th. You will be eligible if you are there to win. Make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com for all information you need on that. No, I'm not mad about the first. I'm fine.
What did we named him? He went from Jimmy to Denny.
Yeah, Denny, because he's being a downer.
I'm not Denny.
He's being a
downer.
He's being a downer. Knock it off, Denny.
You know one thing you could bet on during this segment.
What's that?
Is the fact, because you reference watching the Chiefs play, that people will be mad at any call the Chiefs get, even if it's legit.
Yeah.
That was That was clearly pass interference. Like, what are
100%.
we talking about?
I'm going to get mad about something again.
Oh, my gosh, again?
So can we just this is a thing that's been happening a lot in sports, but also in society. Just because something happened that we don't like, this happened on the opening, on the Lively catch in the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, the toenails
Likely?
out. Yes. I always want to say Derek Lively, and I don't know why.
You have sharks on the brain. You're thinking actresses. Blake.
No, I'm thinking former Duke basketball players, Derek Lively.
Yeah. He looked like everybody else, Bagley and the rest of these
they just recruited the exact same guy for 10 years.
Yeah.
No, something doesn't go your way, and all of a sudden it's rigged. Oh, it's rigged. It's like, no, sometimes you just lose. That's life, man. Not everything's going to go your way. The world's not out to get you. Friggin' chill.
Like
it was a penalty. It was a penalty yesterday on the Bengals.
Yeah, it was.
Like, it was a penalty.
It was a penalty.
It's not rigged. It's not because, like, oh, they want Taylor Swift to be on TV more. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, face of the league. No, it was pass interference. What do you want me to do?
You know the funny thing.
You want me to not call it because it's the Chiefs?
And are we going to really act like they didn't hand the ball to Carson Steele with time to move the ball to settle for a 51-yard field goal?
Yeah.
Who does that other than teams that expect to win?
And that really like their kicker.
Right. What was there ever a question that wasn't going in?
It was always going in, 100%. Zero. And no one,
these dudes played it safe
to get to a 51-yard field goal.
For a 51-yard field goal.
Because they're like, yeah, this is money.
Yeah.
Money in the bank.
It's incredible.
It's not rigged, Bengals fans. You pass interfered.
You shake my hand. If that guy has the ball last,
you
there's
lose.
A good chance they're winning.
I know. I was watching the Super Bowl, and I was like, dear God, don't let him have the ball last. It's the only thing I cared about was Patrick Mahomes not having the ball last against my team in the Super Bowl.
So you can definitely bet on
if Mahomes has the ball last, you're losing.
You could the X will go crazy if it's the Chiefs.
Yes, even if it's legitimately a penalty.
Clearly Chiefs fatigue.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
They're good, man.
Penalties are penalties, whether you like the team or not.
And the Bengals need to share some ownership in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a giveaway.
100% a giveaway.
It's still mind-boggling.
Like, we're just gonna mind-boggling.
Yes.
It's all bottled up in their mind.
Here's another thing that you can.
That's the other thing I loved about the rigged crowd. They just ignore all the BS that they screwed up.
Oh, I know.
Right? It's like, oh no, it's like the Bengals played a perfect football game. Yeah. And it wasn't until that pass interference that it all went to crap.
And I get it. I'm sick of the Chiefs winning too, but I'm not.
You can't be mad at it. Just go beat them.
I'm not mad. That's a good.
Well, get used to it because it's going to be that way for like the next 5 years.
Now, I don't know about that.
It's going to be like that this year.
Wow. That's just penciling in the Chiefs?
I mean, I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to win a lot of games, whether that ends up in another title or not. I would guess not because nobody's three-peat before, so that's really hard to do, obviously.
Well, you would hope that they would get complacent, but apparently they're mad that they get this kind of treatment.
Yeah, it's not the complacency I'm worried about. If you need an incredible amount of injury luck to win a Super Bowl, and are they going to have that again or not? That's what matters. I think that's going to are the right guys going to be healthy at the right time for them to pull this off?
You want to know something else you can bet on?
What's that?
During our Warhorse segment?
What's up?
That a team won't be in the red zone 7 times and only score once.
That's so hard to do.
Shane.
That is so hard to do.
He's on the phone. Do you know who was in the red zone 7 times and only scored once?
That's so hard to do.
A coach that almost cried at the podium.
Bills.
Campbell.
Oh, that's right. Detroit.
They were in the red zone 6 times with no points.
Yep. That's really hard to do.
In a league where kicking appears to be fairly automatic.
If you've got one of the guys, if you don't, it's hard.
You were in the red zone 6 times?
They were in 7 times. They went out scoreless, 6 of them.
Like, you talk about a team that had no business losing. How would you like to be Detroit?
They lost by 4.
How about them apples?
They lost by 4 points. And they went scoreless in 6 of their 7 red zone trips.
And you know what else almost happened?
What's that?
Mayo almost locked up Coach of the Year in week 2.
He almost did. God, they for the lack of talent on that roster, they should be so much worse than they look. And it's not pretty, don't get me wrong, but
no,
they're competitive.
It's horrible.
They're competitive, though. I'll give them credit there. You know what else you can bet on?
That Jerome almost needed to be resuscitated if Tennessee would have beat the Jets.
We almost needed a wellness check by him getting beat by Will Levis.
I mean, again, another quarterback that threw for less than 2 bills.
This might be.
I mean, he's no Justin Fields.
Right there.
Who is? Really nobody. He's kind of a unicorn in the league.
And I don't even know why I'm laughing, because I think Rodgers only threw for like 180 or 178 or something like that.
It wasn't impressive.
Like, what's going on?
It was less than Levis. Like, he threw for less than Levis.
What's going on with this statistical output?
It's weird. We had a couple 300-yarders this week, but it was still weird. You know what I would also bet on? Packers Colts might be the worst quarterback play you see all year in one game.
How about how one-handed was Green Bay, and the Colts still let them? If Green Bay didn't have 34 penalties in the first 12 plays, that thing might have been way over.
I know that we get enamored with the physical attributes of Anthony Richardson. He's a lot like the guy we saw at Florida who wasn't very good for a lot of the time.
Hard to be a worse version of Lamar Jackson and think that you're going to win meaningful games.
Do you remember who I compared him to at the beginning of the season or during preseason?
No.
I said,
when you say it, I will.
He said he's Joe Milton with less tape.
Yeah, you did say
flock going on.
You did say that.
We saw way too much.
He got beat by Malik Willis.
Yeah, who shouldn't beat anybody. Malik Willis is not even a functional backup in the NFL.
I mean, go Coach LaFleur.
Malik Willis got pulled mid-drive in a preseason game.
He got pulled for a guy that we don't even like in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Will Levis.
Yeah. Yeah. A guy that couldn't beat out Sean Clifford at Penn State. And we know we don't like Sean Clifford, but all of a sudden we like Will Levis.
Yeah.
Malik Willis couldn't win a job at Auburn.
Levis is still throwing the ball to the other team.
For a guy at Bo Nix, right? Bo Nix and Will Levis Bo Nix and Malik Willis both at Auburn at the same time. Sean Clifford, Will Levis both at Penn State at the same time. The guys that won those jobs we don't particularly like, but the guys that lost those jobs we think could be starters in the NFL.
So we also know that apparently quick game doesn't work in the NFL. We asked if Sean Payton could make a living with Bo Nix 1, 2, 3.
He cannot.
Man.
He cannot. Bo Nixon makes bad decisions.
Well, it reminded me a little bit of watching Deshaun Watson, and they got to win. Do you know what the average completion was for him? Or pass attempt? It was I think it was 4.4.
I would have guessed under 5.
That's incredible.
He's terrible.
They won, and they beat your generational talent.
Listen, talent
who hasn't won since Thanksgiving.
Talent does not equal production. He's incredibly talented. He's pretty bad at football.
Go look at his first half stat.
Oh, I know. He was like 4 for
5 of 11, I think.
Yeah, it was like 4 for 10 or 5 or 11 for 16 yards.
Yeah. Balling.
I mean, Jamarcus Russell was pretty talented too. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Campfire, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB, what have we missed from the weekend?
We have missed the fact that you are still mad at Nebraska's fan base and media for not being kind.
I just need him to be better.
Or appreciative.
I just need him to be better.
We missed the fact that...
Is that too much to ask? That they're just a little bit better?
Memphis we thought was actually a pretty good team. It's just easy to hammer on Florida State.
Yeah, both those things can be true. Memphis can be good and Florida State can be bad. Same thing with Cal this week. I don't know if we learned anything about Cal.
We figured out that Clemson may be 0 for 3 with 5-star quarterbacks.
That one's weird. If you look at the teams that have gotten 5-star quarterbacks, multiple 5-star quarterbacks, to go 0 for 3 between Hunter Johnson, DJU, and Cade Klubnik.
And Klubnik is
pending.
I mean, he did almost throw for 4 bills the other day. They didn't make your Lazarus project.
No, I just don't trust them. I don't.
You're riding with Notre Dame.
I am, yeah. I trust the defense. I think the defense is really good. And I think the offense will be good enough with that schedule that they'll be fine. Now, I don't know if they'll make college football playoff, but I think 10-2 is pretty safe. I think.
Okay.
Now 10-2 doesn't get them in the playoff. I think they have to go 11-1 with that Northern Illinois loss. But I could easily see them not lose again until USC, if USC is who we think they are.
How about Notre Dame just randomly having to cheer for Northern Illinois now?
Yeah, super weird. They need Northern Illinois to be, which, I mean, to be fair, Northern Illinois all of a sudden is in position with.
They got Buffalo this week?
Yeah, I believe so. That's either this week or next week. But Northern Illinois all of a sudden is in position to have the best Group of 5 win. And if they can handle their business, all of a sudden they're in conversation to be in the playoff as the Group of 5 champion.
What was the UTEP Liberty final? That probably wasn't on your Rolodex? I'm weird just because
I don't have that off the top.
I'm having this discussion that Sharpie asked me on air between UTEP and Northern Iowa.
Who you think's better?
Because on the surface it looked like Northern Iowa was better than UTEP.
I thought so. I mean, you asked me that. I don't know if you asked me that on or off air, but my initial first blush was that UTEP's better, or that Northern Iowa's better than UTEP. I don't have any problem with that. Was that USA, or are they in Southern? I can never remember.
It's 28-10 Liberty.
I can never remember what any of these schools are in.
Would you like to get to our man Kurt in Arkansas?
We can get to our guy Kurt in Arkansas. What's up, Kurt?
Not much. How y'all doing?
Kurt, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, I want to talk to you about the running back room there, Damon.
Okay.
We've got 4 guys that could legitimately start at Nebraska and arguably could start almost anywhere else in the country.
Mm.
I don't remember a running back room being that deep until you go back to your era.
Yeah.
Where you guys had LP, Amon, you, and Clinton.
Yeah.
And I credit that to Coach Barthel, 100%. You can see the difference in these guys from last year to this year, even from spring ball, fall ball to this year. And Dowdell is the number 1 candidate for EJ's, work.
Team development, yeah.
Oh yeah, that kid. Now he's back to the size of running back. When Nebraska was running the ball, he weighs 5'10", 6 foot, 225. He's not one of these 185, 190 pound kids.
He's a hammer. He is a bona fide hammer.
Well, the thing is, even, I heard a comment he made when he saw Shiloh in the Colorado game. Instead of hurdling or juking him, he thought in his head, punish.
Yeah.
Man, you got to love that attitude.
Yeah, I like the fact that I appreciate the call, Kurt. Their attitude is so unselfish in that room.
Mm. You got to be. Because you got to be, right?
I mean, one guy goes without playing, and then a guy starts a couple of weeks, and then he doesn't play until the second half. And his first touch is, I think, a swing pass, which for a guy, and I know maybe Sam was talking about Ramirez, a runner. He runs into guys, but in the open field, he's
pretty elusive.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Or Ramirez pretty good. Like
you
see him get to the sticks on that little swing pass.
Yeah. He's really good in space. And I think he's a little tougher as a runner than people give him credit for, and a better runner, kind of just a traditional running back than people give him credit for, because we always think of those types of plays. But I did want to – I think there was a year when Roy Halou, Rex Burkhead, and Amir
that was good.
All
and I think Roy might have been gone when Aaron Green got there.
No, he was in the same class as Amir.
Okay, so
because Amir, Braylon Hurd, and Aaron Green were all in the same class. So you had those 5 guys.
That's a good room.
2011, you had those 5 guys.
That's a really good room.
Yeah, that's a really, really good room. Braylon Hurd ended up being good at Kentucky. Aaron Green ended up being good at TCU.
Yep.
Obviously, we know about Amir, Rex, and Roy Halou.
With McNeese. Rex's kids were funny. It's weird. It's so we talked to Jared Crick.
Mm-hmm.
He's going into the hall. And congratulations to those guys, Farley, and it's a bunch of them training. Leitner and guys going in, and those guys have kids that are young. I think Rex has 6 under 10 or 5 under 10. Crick will have 3 under 5 years old. Rex has youngins. And I was telling, Crick was asking me about Westside, and I was like, yeah. I said, Purify's son's going to be really good. And he's looking around. His wife's expecting. He's got the 2 little shorties. He's like, most kids, he's in high school? Yeah, old Mo got a little bit of a head start, a lot older than you guys, even though you're roughly the same. It was just funny to see the look on his face.
That makes me feel so old. Yeah. Like that Purify's kids playing high school ball.
Yeah.
That makes me feel ancient.
He's going to be really good, too. It's just funny how. And poor Crick, his wife, she's expecting like any day.
Oof.
And she was out there waiting during that interview like a champ. And Jared was like, yeah, don't get it confused, man. She's the tough one of the bunch. I was like, obviously. Shoot, like any day? Like how? Like what
day?
Like what happens? Like if you have to rush out of the stadium, you ain't getting out of there quick.
No, you're really not. Maybe they'll let you use that. Usually they keep an ambulance under a stadium.
We need the vehicle that the governor came in.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, my man! I thought it was like Jack Bauer in 24, man. Like those dudes pulled up in those sweet black trucks with the little red and blue lights on the front. I was like, ooh.
Maybe you can borrow that little, I don't even know what it is, that little farm vehicle that Akers gave Rhule.
Yeah.
You can roll that thing out the stadium.
That thing can move.
I know. It's like a souped up golf cart, basically, is what it is.
They use it for recruits. Got on that thing.
You go zipping around.
Yeah, that joker's fast. I wouldn't drive it. I need to be covered up.
I need doors on my car.
Ask anybody that took us around that day. I was like, I don't feel safe.
Always slow this thing down a little bit. Pump them brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I ain't that dude. Give me a helmet.
I saw that on social media, and I was like, all right, Coach Rhule zipping around.
Can you imagine me riding around with one of those little sidecar helmets for a little
they just put you in
souped up golf car? That thing was fast. Though.
Yeah. No, those are nice. Let's get to our guy, K-Dub here. Wants to talk about the 49ers loss. I don't know that we need to talk about that, but sure. Why not? What's up, K-Dub?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Good. What's up, buddy?
I've been to Niners games in different venues, and I have to say the Minnesota Vikings venue is freaking amazing. Their intro is probably up there in the top, that little snow intro. That's pretty cool.
Skull.
But what do you think about a fan getting kicked out of their home stadium when they're winning? Isn't that kind of like embarrassing? That was the only downfall.
Who that? Well, unless you're at Cal, because Wilcox had to take the microphone because they were getting personal fouls because of the way Cal's fan base was. No, Cal's fan base, the student section got 2 personal fouls. So,
holy cow.
Yeah, a lot of protesting goes on at Cal. I don't know if you know that, K-Dub. A lot of unhappy folks protesting on that campus. But I don't know. That would be weird. Like, what happened? Was somebody hammered or what?
Yeah, they were just slammed there. And the worst is you're at the top of the top. You're in the cheapest seat you could possibly get, and you still ruining your own money. And it was in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like you're you couldn't make it through a whole game.
He's probably worried the Purdy was getting ready to mount a comeback.
It's not October yet. Brocktober hasn't kicked in full gear yet.
Yeah, I wish. To me, what I think the weirdest play probably of the game was the Wisnowski block punt. He looked like he was in slow motion, and that dude is normally poetry in motion, where it's just so smooth. And you see him go so slow, and me and my buddy who went with me were all Niners fans, and I'm like, did we just see that guy seriously look like he was in a ballet dancer just going da 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 to kick the ball, and then it gets blocked. Blocked. And then he stands there looking, just going, did that just get blocked?
Oh, that was wild. I'm glad you're back safely, K-Dub. You stayed away from all the folks that are driving fast and probably not real sober.
Appreciate the call. I wasn't a big fan of watching that punt get blocked. Not
Do we really know what's wrong with Jefferson yet?
I don't know.
Just a mystery quad, or
I do have a submission from X, from D Sakura. Says, I implore you to switch back to using the name Jimmy. I, being holder of the name and representative of the dentist community.
Oh, he's great too. You said Sakura?
Yeah, do not condone or endorse the thoughts and opinions of this dentist guy. I'm not sure how the Jimmy contingent feels. That's the show. We'll be back tomorrow.